Welcome back, everybody, to Maximum Octane. And we have a very exciting episode today. And we're getting to do it live from Grapevine, Texas today. So have some guests with me. We have Jason Patel, who's one of my colleagues. And then very exciting, we have Terry and Travis Griffith. Is that the proper way to say it?
Yep.
And you have really interesting story with everything in the generations of your family. And you're in Ocala, Florida, which is the what?
Horse capital of the world.
Horse capital of the world, which how many of you, I would love to know how many of you knew that Florida is the horse capital of the world and Ocala has such a great...
I didn't even know there were horses in Florida. I thought it was just gators.
There's a lot of those too.
we do have a lot of gators. We do have a lot of gator farms, but horses is a big thing. I was sharing earlier before the podcast started that I got rerouted coming back from Georgia through Ocala. And everybody's front yard had, people have gnomes and stuff where I live. They had horses just running amok in their front yards and all over. And it was pretty surprising. So Ocala Auto Repair is the name of your business. And so want to share a little bit your story?
Well, we bought the shop in April of 2017. We both come from different industries, but we have a long legacy of automotive workers. So my brother was a master mechanic. He's now retired. My father worked at Oldsmobile for 33 years, building cars back in Michigan. Father-in-law worked at Fisher Body, again in Michigan. And my grandfather was at Diamond Rio. So a lot of automotive industry in the family, but it's not always been shop owners, just in the industry, and we're car lovers. So
it's in your blood and kind of through osmosis. It just happened.
It just happened. Yeah.
So what were you doing before you decided that this was in your blood to own a repair shop?
My background's actually in graphic arts. So I was doing a little bit of that, did some retail stuff.
Is that who designed these? Because they're pretty fantastic.
And I come from technology. I used to work a lot in cybersecurity, so very different.
Yeah.
Very different. So what made you take the leap? Because a lot of people would say, what the heck were you thinking?
We had some of that. Have you lost your mind? We did it. I did it for a couple of reasons personally. I wanted to work with my son, right? It was a great opportunity. We're both hardcore hobbyists for cars and Jeeps and whatnot. So, and he was one that brought it to me. He said, hey, are you interested? And we'll do this as a partnership.
Yeah.
Okay. let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Okay. So he did it as a leap of faith to be with you. What made you lose your mind?
It was kind of one of those things like we always talked about, watching the car shows and working on stuff. Wouldn't it be cool to have a shop one day? And the opportunity came along, and at that point I was kind of looking for something different, and I said, why not? Let's do it. Let's take a chance and see what we can do.
Okay.
So how does it compare to the car shows?
A lot different.
Very different.
Yeah. Little bit, just a smidge, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I'm sure your thoughts were we could just build and buy and make any cars. We could work on them anytime we want. We can have technicians to help us at our beck and call. We could hire whoever we want.
Yeah.
We could take off whatever we want. We could just do.
Yeah. I think that was kind of the dream in the beginning. It didn't quite work out that way.
We learned a lot.
Learned a lot.
So what was one of the first lessons you learned to making the transition?
Going from a hobbyist to working in the industry, you realize how much you don't know. That was the big realization to me.
I think it was some of the same, right? Because I thought I was fairly competent and realized how incompetent I was as a technician. I'm like, that's why I'm not turning a wrench.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things, right, is efficiency and productivity. Yeah. When you're a hobbyist, you do it off work. You do it whenever you feel like doing it.
Yep.
And then when you get into the industry, now you got to get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And all these technicians, I mean, that's how they're trained. And then tools, right? You want to have nice tools. You want to have decent tools. But then once you're in the industry, you're actually working on cars. The tools that you thought were nice are not the nice tools.
That is true. The nice tool for the hobbyist is very different than the nice tools for the actual industry. So biggest thing that you learned from just the startup, besides that maybe to know what you thought you knew and it wasn't the same as TV?
Mm-hmm.
What was the next thing that you learned?
For me, there was a couple of lessons. One was that customers can be very complex, and not having worked in retail, I wasn't quite experienced with some of that. So there's some learning curve there with some trouble, people get cranky. And so you try to work through that. My biggest lesson was once we got attached to ATI. And for me, it was to shut up and listen and just follow instructions because it will work. So that was my huge epiphany at that moment. And that we've been with ATI almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
And went from struggling to, I think, quite comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also, and that's a difficult thing, to put your faith in someone else and listen. And that's always such a valuable lesson, I think, when you're in business or even in life, to surround yourself with a trusted team, because there isn't any person that can know everything about everything, or at least anybody on earth. So we have to put our faith in sometimes other people, and it's hard to do control. And I wasn't laughing at you, I was with you because I'm trying to picture an IT guy that didn't have to ever deal with people all of a sudden have, well, there's a noise in my car when I'm doing 72.5 miles an hour and I'm leaning to the left and my son is in his car seat. It only happens then.
Did you turn it off and turn it back on?
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
All right, let's talk about the dynamic of working with family.
Uh-oh. Do we have enough time for this?
We don't need Dr. Phil. We really don't. I'll just give you my opinion. I think it works well because we have the relationship where we can talk and express differences when we have them. A lot of times we align pretty easily. And we're not afraid to, if we're not aligned, then we're not afraid to speak up, right? It just don't take it personal. It's business, right? But for me, most of the time it works. Now, he runs the front of the shop, and I run the back end infrastructure, marketing, and all those pieces. So I'm a little bit different. I'm not in the direct wave of the things from day to day, as the same as he is. So.
Okay, and what's your side of this?
I agree.
Two sides.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely get along really well as far as the business and everything goes. We're pretty good about bouncing ideas off each other, and if somebody has a problem with it, we're not afraid to say, "Hey, I don't think we should go that way," or maybe let's try to flesh out the idea a little bit more and get some more feedback, and we'll talk to each other about it. And it actually works out really well, especially, he's not familiar with the customer side of things. And that's pretty much what I did in retail, and I did restaurants and all types of stuff. And so it works out really well, that balance that we have.
So you're just making my heart sing right now, that it sounds like you have very clear duties and descriptions and you don't encroach on each other's area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what if there's a impasse and you can't decide who makes the tiebreaker? Does mom step in? Or
She has a vote. She has a vote.
Okay, so let's talk about this family dynamic for a little bit, because clearly you have a very strong family structure before the business started before. And so you have a mutual respect, you listen to each other, you've been able to talk things through way before the business came. And oftentimes when families go into business, they don't really have that solid foundation before they go in, and they think this is a great idea. And so they're learning how to just have relationships, and then on top of that, a business, which is a great strain. So really, if you're a family that's wanting to start a business or get in together, do a little family counseling and make sure that you can have these conversations, because businesses, not just in our industry, have entirely destroyed families when it's not handled properly. Yeah. So do you have any kind of rules that some people say, like, we don't talk business after 5:00, or we never do at the business table, or we only do it on Tuesdays at 2:00. Do you have any kind of things?
No, I don't. Not that I can think of, because we'll get together for dinner and we might talk 10 minutes of business.
Yeah.
And then we should stop, right? It's just, there's a couple of questions I might have, or vice versa.
So you're unicorns, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I guess we're doing something right. And some of it's, divine intervention or something, but it's working.
I mean, I think there's a mutual respect to, I'm not going to call him at 9:00 at night with a business question. I'll wait till the next day, that type of stuff. And we try to meet at least once a quarter. We have like a full-on meeting where we're sitting down for a day and going over everything.
Oh,
but
I love that.
We meet for breakfast or lunch or dinner or whatever, and we'll talk a few minutes about business and then move on to everything else. And there's pretty consistent phone calls, I think. And
we talk several times a week and synchronize things.
So what about the generational difference? Because there's that too. Even if you're not related, there's a generation gap, right, between ideas and different things and what's hip today or what's acceptable and how do you approach that? Oh, now I all right.
Well, that's complicated. It's so I have kind of a quirky sense of humor, and so some of the marketing things, he looks at me like I'm out of my mind, and sometimes I say, let's try this to see how it goes, and some of them have done very well, and some of them have just fallen flat. So he does listen to me and he accommodates me sometimes with some of the marketing ideas, but there is some differences, right? Because, a lot of years of time there. And I sometimes reference things that are going back into the 80s and 90s. And he's like, I don't know what that is.
Right.
Well, it's also interesting. We have where we live, there's no offense, but there's several retirement communities and that type of stuff too. So he kind of plays to that side, and then my side, I kind of play to some of the little bit younger generations. So it kind of works out in the end. And, he's right. He does come up with some crazy stuff. Sometimes we have a mascot at the shop now called Otto, which is basically Bigfoot. And that was all his idea. We've done some commercials with it.
Sasquatch was big in our day, and the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah. Those were serious.
If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see Otto all over it. He's a mascot and our chief shenanigans coordinator. So we do videos with him, and it's very popular. It took off, but he thought I was mad. We had a full costume made. And
I saw a picture of you with it in the office, I think.
Okay, yeah.
On Instagram. It definitely did take off.
Yeah, it took off, and it's like people like it. It's like, okay, well, let's roll. I don't know why. It was just quirky ideas. So,
well, I think there's also you guys have very defined roles, right? Like you said, you're doing a lot of the administrative, but the marketing and doing all of the back of the shop kind of stuff as far as stuff that you don't see.
Yep.
But you also had a background in cybersecurity, so you still understand a lot of the actual space itself.
Correct.
And that's kind of the difference, right? When we start talking about generational gap and stuff, a lot of people don't understand that. And then you clash with the next generation because they're trying to tell you, hey, this might be a better option. But I think that having that understanding makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And those clearly defined roles, and then who's the tiebreaker, what there has to always be. And that's the other thing we see is if people are in business together, they have their roles or lanes or whatever you want to call them, but then there's not set that, okay, if we can't come to a decision, I'm going to handle anything that comes. I have the final say if it comes to customer experience, or, you just say, I have the final say if we can't agree on IT stuff or whatever it is. And it's just so important. So let's talk about the good things. Not that this all wasn't good. And I'm so glad you're not completely perfect and have something with the generation gap, because I was really starting to feel inadequate for a minute. I don't know. But let's talk about the good things. When did you have your epiphany? Hey, this is all right. This is going to be a good thing.
I really feel there's been several over the years, epiphanies, and as certain goals and we're hitting our goals and we're hitting our benchmarks has been huge. There were some real scary times in the very beginning. So I don't want to get into any crazy details, but it was very scary and seeing us grow and continue to grow. And it's been really neat.
The first 2 years were scary. Not just because of the learning curve for us, but the person we bought business from, the numbers that thought we were buying were not what we were buying. And it was like, oh crap, right? Because now you've got to really scramble, and we were out of savings, propping it up, trying to keep things going in the early days. So there's a lot of scary. But once we got some guidance and some understanding, then, like I said, we started setting goals. And even though I didn't understand how it was going to work, suddenly we're hitting goals and we're making numbers, and it's like, okay, I can do this, right? I'm much more comfortable, and I still post questions to the Facebook group or to our coach, and what do you think about this? And because there's always something that's a little bit off or a little bit quirky that you need to understand. So We've had a lot of good epiphanies as we've come through it. For me, anyway.
I think you brought up a good point, though, right? A lot of people, you might know the space very, very well, whether it's automotive, whatever business you're in, you might know the space very, very well. But there's always something you don't know.
Yep.
And then being able to have that resource. So even as a coach, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I'm also actively in the industry. So I know a lot of the stuff, but there's also a lot of stuff I don't know. And we have all of these resources available. So if there's something that you ask me and I don't know, I have someone else to ask. I think that's one of the beauties of being with a business coach. A lot of people don't understand the whole coaching space. Why do you need someone to tell you what to do when you can just look it up online, right? And it's not about telling, it's about talking about it, working through the ideas, and making sure everybody has all the resources that they need.
Yeah, I agree. Makes a lot of difference. Because looking up online that's great. That's an opinion, but there's no bi-directional conversation there to work through what your particular situation is. So
to know you're not alone and that there's somebody there that's partnering with you to work through the storm, because there's a lot of storms to weather in business, and it doesn't matter how well you have it going, there's always some kind of a glitch you have to be prepared for or something. So that's great. So let's chat about your culture a little bit, because that's one thing you did really well. Not the only thing, but really well. What do you think your secret to that is?
To me, it's a true family experience when you're working on Ocala Auto Repair. All the guys have say. Their voices are always heard. We try to do things with them on a regular basis to make them feel inclusive. When we're working every day, I'm the type of person that I love to laugh and love to have a good time. So, we're always joking with each other. We're always trying to make it enjoyable because, we're going to be there more than we're going to be at home a lot of times. So let's have fun. Let's create an environment where everybody wants to be there. And then the workflow just kind of comes naturally if everybody's having a good time.
I'm the same way. I like to laugh. I don't mind working hard, but have a little fun. And that's not saying you distract from the job to go and do something, but I'm just saying, you can make a joke, you can have a laugh on whatever it is, and you just keep rolling through it. But it breaks up the day, takes the stress down, because it is, a crazy industry. It really is.
So what advice would you have to our viewers about keeping things fun, but also keeping boundaries? There's a misconception out in the world that if you have fun or you treat somebody like family or you have empathy, that they're just going to run amok and take advantage of you and they're going to cross the line all the time. So how do you do that? How do you keep the boundaries plus have that closeness?
One of the things I usually do is set that expectation in the very beginning from the interview process is, hey, I'm a really easygoing guy. I like to have fun. I like to have a good time, but we also got to get work done at the same time and set that expectation. And then, you have two different tones of voice or whatever, you when you're talking a serious thing, you make sure it's a time you set aside. It's very serious. And then the rest of the time, if you're joking, laughing, they know what's going on. But I think a lot of it just boils down to just setting that expectation at the very beginning.
Yeah, because the team knows from the very beginning that, we have rules and we stick to it, like timeliness and tardiness and how, but there's rules around that. And if they start to screw up, then they get written up. And a lot of them haven't gone through that, but they've seen one or two that got off to rough starts and because they thought we weren't serious. No, we're real serious. We like to have fun, but this is a business. And the other thing that we do too, I think that helps is as we grow, as we improve, we make sure that it reflects in their salaries and their benefits, and we keep adding and adding to it. So they're really a part of the company, and making them feel that, I put it as ownership, right? Where they're benefiting from the growth and the hard work, I think is worthwhile. So they'll get more committed once they see there's some results to it. Different than a dealership, I would imagine. Yeah.
Just a smidge. I think it's a smidge different than a dealership, Jason.
Well, there's one thing that you guys said, like a lot of fun, right? And then last night I was just scrolling through some of y'all's social media and all of that. One thing I did see is you guys do work on some cool things, right? So that's a lot. That's one of the things a lot of people kind of forget when they're in the general auto repair space. So a lot of these people that are working with their hands, that are working on cars, they like cars to some extent.
Yeah.
And when you're just doing the same thing every single day, you need something to break it up. So whether that's going to events, right? Automotive events in the area, for you guys have horses, so I'm not sure what all that, correlates. I'm sure there's some horse events too that people like in the area. But like doing things like that, do you guys have anything that you guys do as a shop, whether it's annual or anything like that?
Give you a little bit of background. So we have what we call the front of the shop, which is general repair.
Okay.
And then we have the back of the shop. It's all classic work. Ooh. So if you go to the back of the shop, which is about a third of our building, we do things from frame restorations to motor builds to, we've done drag cars.
Awesome.
Right now we've got 9 classic cars in for different things, including a Superbird,
41 Willys.
That's my dream car. Is a 41 Willys.
Really?
So
yes,
we have both of those, and so there's some focus on that back end. We do a lot of car shows, and our customers will ask them to bring we'll get big booth space, right, and bring the cars in, and let's set them up and show them off. So we're kind of weird in that niche, but we have a lot of passion with the classic stuff, and we have some really high quality, talented people that understand that stuff. So it's made it possible for us to do it, because that started as one guy in the back and one basically lift. And now we've got a third of our shop dedicated to it and a team back there. So we focus on car shows. As he mentioned, we have a lot of retirement communities. They're active on social media, usually Facebook. So the shop is part of that club. We interact with them. We're in a mode now. We're going to start sponsoring some of their car shows, right? So we get banners and stuff up. But we're starting to get traction from it. So these are retirees with, some income that can do things with their classic cars. So they started to bring them into us. So it's been an interesting marketing ploy there.
let's touch on marketing again for a moment, because you do a lot of diverse things. Mm-hmm. And that's another area where I think business owners get hung up on. They don't know how to market or to showcase that they are more than one thing, or they do things. We have so many stories of business owners that they'd say, especially shop owners, oh my gosh, I've had these people, coming in for years. No one ever knew we did tires, or they didn't know we did oil service, or whatever it is, because they don't market properly for that. So with such a diverse customer base and clientele, how do you market to all of those?
Sometimes it's throwing spaghetti against a wall, see what sticks. So primarily for just general repair, we just focus on, largely on Google. We're doing Nextdoor now, and we may expand a little bit more. I did post to the Facebook group a question about radio, because we were thinking maybe that's what we needed. I got some great feedback. We decided we'd pause that and increase our Google spend instead, start driving there. The classic pieces come a lot from attending the shows and just posting pictures of the cars finished or in progress. We just finished a C10 pickup. What was that, 1970? Came in on a wrecker, doors off. It was a complete project, and it went out 8 months later.
8 months.
That's pretty quick.
As a gorgeous driver, right? It's not Amelia Island type show car. It's a nice driver. It's very clean. And the owner loved it, right? And so we could show those. And I promote those pieces, those types of projects, to a lot of the car groups locally. And then we do the shows, we promote it that way. So it's two different facets for two different sort of businesses that we have.
I mean, it's also hard sometimes too, because, we still get that sometimes with clients that have been with us from the beginning. They're like, oh, you guys do whatever, restoration? I didn't know, I didn't know. So, it's true. It happens all the time. And one of the things we started doing is, at the front, right behind the counter, I put a big, 55-inch TV, and it just kind of scrolls through. It doesn't, pricing. It's not a menu board or anything like that, but it shows pictures and some of the projects, and I have little snippets about the team and stuff. And a lot of the clientele find that really cool, because they'll come in, they're like, "Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know you guys did that," or whatever it may be. And that's really gotten a lot of attention lately, even with new and old clients.
So it's like a portfolio.
Yeah.
And one thing that you guys mentioned, right? So what you show is what you attract.
Yeah.
No matter what, if it's social media, in person, or anything like that. So even when it comes to the general auto repair side, people often forget this aspect of marketing, is even when you're working on the normal day-to-day stuff, show it. Why not? Mm-hmm. Right? People are going to see it, even if they have a similar car or they have a similar issue, even if it's on their daily driver, they're still going to want to bring it in because you guys are working on something exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right? So it works with classics, it works with resto mods, it works with general auto repair, it works with any niche it works.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that we see when we're taking pictures of the shop is smiling faces get a lot of responses. So when you're taking pictures and you're posting them, make sure you get your text smiling, at least pretending like they're enjoying what they're doing.
At least pretending. There you go.
Yeah.
You just mentioned about showing pictures of some of the things you've done, and Jason always talks about, put out there what you want to attract, what you want to see. And I think we forget sometimes how a simple thing when a customer sees their car, whether it's in an Instagram post or on Facebook or on your reader board, or how good it makes them feel. They love to see their vehicle. They love to see being recognized. They love that. And anytime that we can do that for somebody and give them the attention of that, they just love it. And it's so far and few between now because we're living such a blur of a world that people don't get that recognition anymore. So it's just such a feel good thing on top of a fantastic marketing plan is to show your happy people, show them. And other people want to be happy. They say, and I think it's almost impossible to look at somebody smiling and not smile. It's infectious, right? So the more that we can get out there, the more feel good, and the more we can make people feel special, which we lack in today's world for sure.
Yeah, and that's a huge statement, right? Make people feel special. And when going back to that C10, they had it set out front of the building, and they had chains all around it, right? So it was all protected, and and she shows up and she's just freaking out.
Yeah.
Right? This is like amazing for her. It's her dream truck, and so it made her feel super special. Now, Travis sent me pictures before she showed up, so I posted them. He goes, "Take them down, take them down, take them down." She hasn't seen the truck yet. She's got to see the truck first. I'm like, oh crap. Okay.
So you hurry up and run.
I take them down. Yeah.
So you almost ruined his big reveal.
I almost ruined the reveal because I didn't realize she hadn't been there. So
I just saw that on a wedding clip the other day. My son's getting married in a couple months. I've been watching little things, and this bride waited her whole life to have the reveal of the walk out the door. And as she was doing it, everybody just went to say, her mom ran out in front of her to tell somebody something. And it ruined their, the point of view was, imagine waiting your whole life for this moment and your mom. So you kind of ruined the dress showing.
yeah.
First look. What do they call it in the wedding? I think a first look. You almost ruined the first look.
Almost, yeah.
So she didn't see it. She didn't.
No, he called me right away.
That's so fun, though. But here you are, so excited, right? Yeah. And so proud of what your team did.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to get it out there as soon as you can. And it was a gorgeous truck, or it is a gorgeous truck. And like,
so now you have a new SOP for when he goes to market. There's a new SOP?
Yeah, there's a timing in there.
Timing, yes.
Timing. Always new SOPs, too. As we go, we develop a lot on the fly. So
I don't think there's an SOP in the world that didn't get developed because something happened to somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
They're always usually after the fact.
It's always after the fact.
We didn't think of that. We didn't think about that. Yeah. So every day when you get up and you get to live your dream and work with your son and make all these people happy, does it get any better than this, or what's next?
Well, I have big goals, and I'm not ready to retire, so I don't think I'll ever retire. But next step for us is to buy the building we're in or build new. So we're working around that. Some complicated landlord things, but I'd rather stay where we're at. It'd be easier. So that's a big thing. Space-wise, we're hoping to get another building that's on the property. It's currently used by someone else, and so we're working with the landlord on that. So space would help. We could expand more. From an excitement perspective, I love every time we've got something coming in, right? And there's good and bad every day, but you get to see a car or you get to fix a problem and you see somebody, even if it's a general repair, and they're happy when they leave, right? It's important. Makes you feel good. Now, he gets to see most of that, but I get to see and respond to all the 5-star reviews. So I call him, say, what do we do for so-and-so? And
That's awesome. What about for you? You like nailed it. Talked my dad into this. I'm getting to live my dream. What's next for you?
I mean, the expansion of the business, I think, is the big thing. I mean, we're dreamers. Obviously, we bought a business and industry we knew nothing about. So, it kind of came into it with this big, grand, we're going to be the big of the big or the best of the best, and so it just keeps working towards that. And as we reach the goal, it's the next goal, and where are we going to go now, and what are we going to do this? And when we started the business, I was like, trying to convince him. I was like, look, there's three buildings in the plaza that we're in. We have the biggest. I'm like, we need all three buildings. He's like, we don't need all three buildings. We're like, we need all three buildings. Just trust me. We need all three buildings. We need all three buildings. And so, I mean, we're just big dreamers. So I don't really see an end in sight right now, because I just see us continuing to grow and evolve and develop over the years.
There we go.
So exciting.
That's great. Like, a lot of people overlook that. Everybody always has this big goal that they want, but that goal is always going to change, no matter what, right? Because as you get to that big goal is no longer big anymore. So, at first it was the 3 buildings, but even now, the 3 buildings is not that big. You guys already have the biggest one. Yeah. Now y'all need the other 2 buildings. It's not like it's a dream. You actually need it.
Yeah.
So from there, it's just going to be what's next, right? It's going to be always something else. I think that's something that everybody has to have. You have to have something to always push yourself. But once you got that one big goal and you reach it, then that's it. There's nothing
because you get complacent once you get, and then people forget that to get to the top of the mountain is like not as hard as staying on there. And so they take their foot off the gas and they don't really have that drive anymore. And so the business starts to slide backwards. And we see that happen a lot, unfortunately, because you have to have always something to drive. And one of the things, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they said, well, I don't need to grow, or I don't need to whatever. We already have enough money. We have this or that named off a lot of material things, which is great. But I said, do your internal customers all have that? And they were like, what? And I said, well, you're saying you're done. You don't need any more money. You want to just stay the way it is. But what about the people that are with you on your journey? Can they all have their stuff? Do they all reach their goals? And they were like, I just never thought of that, And so if you don't have any more goals for yourself, think about what's for your people. There's always something you have to find to drive you. And the world is just limitless when you put your mind to it. So,
well, and I agree. You have to have a target. So some people call them vision boards. That's what I call them. I do vision board, right? And we put stuff up there for the next 12 months where we want to go. And some of it's in writing, some of it's pictures. We had dollar amounts as we've been going through this, and we set it and we reach it. We set a new dollar amount. What do we want to do? Well, how much can the shop make, right? And again, I said it earlier, but when we make more money, we make sure the team makes more money. They get better things because it's important. And to me, it's important to help them up as well as help ourselves. So we put a lot of effort into that. And it's interesting and challenging sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just love your story. It's just so wonderful.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here today. So final words for our viewers, or one piece of advice for them?
Not to sound cliche, but don't stop dreaming. Just keep pushing forward.
That's a good one. And I would say too, from my perspective, don't be afraid to be creative in your marketing. Try to get out there and do something a little different, because then you stand out. And Bigfoot driving cars and doing things is pretty out there.
So you got to do what others don't.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But you still got to do what others do too.
Correct.
Can't forget about that.
You have to do the basics because people are looking for that, but then do something that gets you noticed. And
hey, you guys killed it with that one.
Thank you.
Well, make sure you go. We're going to have all the links in there. Check out their Facebook and their site and look at all the wonderful things they're doing, and check out Bigfoot and all of that. And it was just an absolute pleasure to meet with you this morning. And
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
It was a lot of fun.
This is good. Glad to be the first ones at the conference so far. So.
Yes, you are the first one. So you can post this on your social media. So I'll send you the pictures over, and then we'll get you the links as soon as it's produced for you to share wherever that you want to.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. So you should have brought your Sasquatch costume. Now that I'm thinking of it.
Just imagine Sasquatch coming through the door.
Yeah.
That would actually be really funny. You should have done that next year, maybe.
Next year. As soon as we find out where it is, we'll
all right.
that'll be awesome to bring that. I think it'll be great. Well, thank you again so much.
You.
Really enjoyed
Thank
this.
you so much.